I'm going to talk to you tonight about three things. I'm going to talk to you about tradition. I'm going to talk to you about translation. And I'm going to talk to you about transmission. And they're all linked together. I made a film with Seamus Heaney and Liam O'Flynn called The Poet and the Piper in an old house in Henrietta Street some 10 years ago. And I was speaking with Seamus, and he had just done that translation of Beowulf. And he also had translated an old Irish poem called Gille Ningille, which is a poem by Egon O'Rahilla, which he translated as The Glamoured. And we were talking about the business of translation. And I said to him, what is it about translation? And he said, translation is the way of playing a new tune on the old keyboard of tradition. And I thought about that for a while. And I went home and I wrote down three words: tradition, translation, and transmission. And I thought about the time when I was a young student in the university in UCC and taking up C.P. Snow's pamphlet, I think it was at the time, The Two Traditions and a Second Look. And I began to think about what are the divergent things between a sort of a sense of tradition and then a sense of technology. And are these two parts of the brain always like your fork in the road? Are they divergent? Do you choose one way or do you choose the other? Well, when we look at Ireland and we sort of say to ourselves, you know, what is the greatest resource that we have here? You know, what's the thing that we've got? And I would say, and I would put it out to you, that probably it's imagination. It's the thing out of which every great idea comes, out of which every poem comes, out of which every technology startup comes, out of which all greatness comes. Now, I'm going to tell you a story, and I'm going to use some Irish, and I hope you don't mind, and I'll translate as I go along. V'chushig meir maidin ag bun shlev an iller. I woke up this morning at the foot of Mount Eagle, and I did. And the Hamanis Mogloshtan sus gudi bar on Connacht agus deach me sheer ag an Blascale Moor. I drove my car to the top of the hill and I looked west to the Blasket Islands, which I did. And as I was there, as I am many mornings and many days, I thought of this story. I looked out at the body of water and a tune rattled around in my head. And the tune is a tune called Portabuki, which means, basically, the song of the ghosts, or if you like, spirit music. And I wondered about the tune. And it's one of the great piping tunes in the Irish tradition. It's a powerful piece of music. And I wondered, where did it come from? And I remembered that somebody once told me a story and said, that tune, Portabuki, comes from a family called the Dáligs, the Dailies. They live in Dunhuane. They are boatmen. They go out and they row their boats and they catch their fish. Neovogues, they call those boats, down in West Kerry. And one evening, after a day's fishing, they arrived in home. And one of them took down an accordion and started to play this tune. And somebody said, what is the name of that tune? And they said, we don't know. And they say, where did you get it? They said, we got it outside. It was there. It was given up by the sea. And this tune stays with me. I hear it most days in the back of my head. And I hear the poem that Seamus Heaney wrote about this particular tune. And here it is. And he says this: on the most westerly Blasket, in a dry stone hut, he got this air out of the night. Strange noises were heard by others who followed bits of a tune coming in on loud weather. Though nothing like melody, he blamed their fingers and ear as unpracticed, their fiddling easy, for he had gone alone into the island and brought back the whole thing. The house throbbed like his full violin, so whether he calls it spirit music or not, I don't care. He took it out of wind, off mid-Atlantic. Still he maintains from nowhere. It comes off the bow gravely, rephrases itself into the air. The poem he calls The Given Note. And really what I want to talk to you about this evening are the things that we are given. Sometimes the things that we are given we don't value. We don't have any mass on them because we say they're just there. They're given to us. These traditions that we take for granted, language, music, the notes of music dropped into our ears when we're children, the things that make us considerable for ourselves, the things that perhaps will make us considerable in the world. Do we take them for granted? I think perhaps we do. We have some remarkable gifts in the country, and sometimes I think we don't know how to value them. At this particular time in our history, 2010, if we were to wind back the clock and say we were having this meeting in this room or in another room in Trinity College in 1910, and we were wondering about Ireland, and we were wondering about what sort of a place Ireland might become, and we were wondering about the business of identity and what defines us and what people think about us and how we are going to grow up and how we are going to take our place among the nations of the world, how we are going to cherish all the people of the state equally. Who would be in the room? The people who would be in the room would be talking, I suppose, about tradition. They would be talking about how we're going to make that tradition come alive and how we're going to use that to create something new. I made a series of films earlier this year with the historian Diarmaid Ferriter, and we called the films The Limits of Liberty, because we went back to 1921 and we looked at the promises that were made at the foundation of the state, and we said to ourselves, what happened? What happened to the aspirations that these people had at the foundation of the state? What happened in the intervening 100 years? And I said to Diarmaid, do you know what it is? In 2021, we're going to be 100 years old. And he said, and he's in his 30s, he said to me, but she said, we've only an emotional age of 17. He said, we haven't grown up at all. You know, he said, we still haven't come to engage with the notion of identity, valuing ourselves, self-worth, self-esteem, all these various different things. He said, what happened? How did we get it so wrong? It's an interesting question. You know, did we hand over the responsibility for ourselves, our education, our spiritual well-being, our health, to an institution like the church? Were the politicians that we elected happy for us to do that? Were we able to almost enshrine in law that Ireland could only support 75% of its population? Was there an official policy that encouraged people to leave this country and go away? Were all of those things true? And then what happened? The old Celtic tiger roared and growled. And we wonder, where are we now? What will we do? Where will we find the tools that are necessary to take us back from the edge of catastrophe? Because we're almost at the edge of some sort of catastrophe here. And what will give us the tools, or what tools can we use to take us steps back from that will re-establish a sense of self, but much, much more importantly, give us a sense of renewed trust. Because trust is what we threw out when we walked away from tradition. I don't use the word tradition in the old sense of the word. I try to use it in the true sense of the word. The things that we are given, the things that will make us considerable for ourselves, are the things that will make us considerable in the world. Michael John mentioned Bringing It All Back Home. It's a series I made for BBC television 20 years ago, and we took the notion of the story of Irish music that left Ireland in the heads, the hands, and the feet of the immigrants that left here. The first wave of immigrants from Northern Ireland mainly, after the plantation of Ulster. Second major wave of emigration out of here after the famine, continuing ever since, and about to continue again today. What did we bring with us? What did we do with the stuff that we brought with us, particularly to America? Well, some of it went down through the Cumberland Gap and left an indelible thumbprint on the making of a vernacular American music called country music, if you like. The other thing that happened, which was absolutely hugely significant, was that an orally transmitted music, an Irish dance music, which all of you will know from Riverdance and this, that, and the other, left here, as I said, in the heads, the hands, and the feet of people. It was their cultural baggage they brought with them. But what happened in America? Well, what happened was it ceased to be an orally transmitted music, and it became a music that collided with technology. Because in America, it was recorded for the first time. It was recorded on wax cylinders. It was recorded on 78 records, and they were sent back to Ireland. And we listened to them, and we found them good. And we said, this stuff that comes from America is absolutely fantastic. It's much better than the stuff we have here at home, because it's louder, it's faster, it's more exciting, it's on a record, and it's ours. And we said, this is good. This made us feel good. Gave us a sort of sense of swelling pride that this music was sort of good. That's what some people thought. Some people thought that traditional music is redolent of backwardness, failure. You know, it means it's like sort of a bit like the language, uncool. You know, a bit uncool, because it has that some sort of it's shot through in some way with some sort of sense of failure. But it was successful in America. So then it was okay. It was good because it was successful in America. And look at what else happened in the States with our music. Stephen Foster sat on the banks of the Ohio River and he looked into the slave state of Kentucky and he began to write his songs. George M. Cohan wrote I'm a Yankee Doodle Dandy. His real name was George Cohan from Limerick. He changed it to Cohan because it was cooler to be Jewish. In the music business in New York City. Victor Herbert set up ASCAP, the copyright agency, in New York City. You know, this wasn't soft power. This was there at the beginnings of the invention of patent, copyright, intellectual property. We were there for all of that stuff. We were considerable. And when you think about this for a second, when you think about what we gifted to the development of an American cultural voice, which I heard when I grew up in Cork City, and I went to the Capitol Cinema, and I heard, you know, country music, and I wore my gun and holster, and I drank Coca-Cola. It was with this music that came from here, day one, that America, to some degree, colonized the world. Let me wrap this up because I've rattled on too long and didn't get to any of the things that I was going to talk about because you said failure. Right? So I'm going to say fail better. I think the old lexicon is over. I think the lexicon of the market, which open cast mines a resource constantly and doesn't replenish it, is something that we need to look at, and I think we should take great care with it. And I'm going to sing you a verse of one song, which is a blues song, which I learnt as a child when I grew up in Cork City, and it is a song called The Factory Girl, because I don't want to work in that old factory anymore. I want to work in the new Ireland, in the new place where we engage seriously with growing up and having a great identity. It is not Arthur's Day. It is culture night tomorrow night when all the institutions are open and free and for us and of ourselves. It's not some spurious, buccaneering, marketeering sham that's going out on the street this evening. So, I'll sing the song. Well, I ain't gonna work in the factory and greasy up my clothes. No, I ain't gonna work in the factory and put those splinters in my toes. Pity me, my darling, won't you? Pity me, I say. Pity me, my sweet little darling, and won't you carry my blues away? And I ain't gonna hear that old spinning wheel rolling round my head when other girls is hard at work. I'm gonna be home in bed, yes I am. Pity me, my darling, won't you? Pity me, I say. Pity me, my sweet little darling, and won't you carry my blues, and won't you carry my blues away. Yeah. Thank you.